Hello everybody, Drew's Creations here, back with another video. And well, as y'all can see, I've kind of got a mess. Yep, I done drug some more stuff home. I sure did. Got a slew of stuff here, mostly steel. Well, all of this is steel except for one piece that I'm working on right this minute. But I drug this BR700 home, MS193 top handle, pretty clean old MS290, and over there on the far end, that's an MS211. This thing right here, I didn't film it because I got excited, and that's usually what happens. I got it running. Well, the fella told me it ran, but it's been sitting for a while. And well, when I finally did get it to start, it didn't want to run very well, and it was lean, come to find out, which most things are, because the EPA likes to do that. And when they get lean, they don't want to run, which is what it was exactly wrong with this thing. So yeah, what I did, I found out the chokes broke, which I can still turn it by hand, so that's no big deal. I'm going to try to find a choke knob for it, but if I can't, I'll just live with it the way it is and until it gives me some major carb trouble and I end up having to put a carburetor on it, because usually I don't fool with the carburetors on these old blowers like this. If they start giving trouble, I just replace them, because for whatever reason, these carbs, they just don't, I don't know, when they're fine until they give trouble, and when they give trouble, they're not the best to work on. The primer bulb is busted, so that would probably be why it didn't really want to start on its own. That and it being dry, the carburetor was dry because it really didn't have no gas in it. I mean, it's a little beat up. The mounts are soft on it, squishy, but overall, I can't complain. I got me a good running blower, and just in time for fall, because the last blower I had, I sold it, unfortunately, but you know, that happens. Things sit around here too long. Sometimes they end up in other hands, especially when people need them. Because for me, I can find stuff eventually. It ain't no big deal to me. You know, I get something, I play with it for a while, and then I usually, unless it's something that I really love, it ends up going down the road. But yeah, so it runs. It's still actually warm because I was running it a little while ago, blowing around some stuff. But the primer's busted, so I'll have to get one of them and try to find a choke. But the pads and everything's in pretty good shape. Everything. Somebody's taped that, probably because it was sliding around. Those things like to do that, so I'll bet that's why it's taped. But it's got the adjustable tube, the cruise control, everything works. The switch on it works. Yeah, got me a nice cheap blower. Probably keep it around maybe for a little while. Blow some leaves around here because it is about to be fall. The 193. 193T. It's ugly. It's got some cracks, stuff like top handles typically do, because these things just get thrown around and stuff. Side cover is completely busted out around the muffler, which is very common too. And somebody's already done us a favor and muffler modded it. So this little thing right here actually runs. It seems to run pretty good. It's a little bit lean. I just actually put the air filter and stuff back on it because I had to wash it. It was really nasty, but I got to looking in there and the limiters are still on it, so we gotta take some time and pull that thing off and trim them limiters down so we can adjust on this thing and maybe find it a new home soon, because, well, I've got an MS200 and I don't really need this thing. And then the 290, I literally, right before I started filming, figured out what was wrong with it. Like I say, y'all, I jumped the gun. Sorry I didn't bring y'all along with me to unveil all this stuff, but I really didn't think about turning the camera on until after I got it all. But he told me this thing here ran, but it was leaking fuel, and I brought it home and it already had gas, and it looks like he runs Red Armor, which is a good thing. That's pretty decent stuff. But I had my hand on the trigger and I was revving it up, and my hand kept getting wet right here around my fingers and stuff. I kept feeling wetness there, and I tilted it up and got to looking, and the fuel line, for once, the vent is not the culprit. The fuel line is actually the culprit. every one of these I usually get, and any of these steels from this era, they all had those vents, and they would always be missing or broke or whatever, and they'd leak from there. But it turns out the fuel line's bad, and I got to looking at it, and it looked like it wasn't all the way down in there, like somebody had maybe put a fuel line in it, didn't get it all the way down in there right. And then I reached in the tank with my long needle nose pliers, and I pulled out a piece of fuel line. It's completely broke off. So it turns out it was not new, and I guess it's just shrunk from being old, probably the original line, because this all was a 2009 model. Probably the original fuel line, if I had to guess. It's just shrunk and kind of slid up out of there a little bit and broke off, and now it's leaking. So I'm surprised it even ran, because I mean, it was a good piece. Probably about that much fuel line broke off with the filter on it. So I think the only thing that made this thing run was the fact that it's got a full tank of gas right now, or almost a full tank of gas, and it was high enough for it to suck fuel and run. So I'm gonna order a fuel line and filter, and probably pop the carburetor apart while I've got it, make sure it hasn't sucked up any trash since it's been running without a fuel line or without a filter. Make sure it's good there. And then as far as the 211 goes, it's not in terrible shape. It's in pretty decent shape. It does run, and I thought it ran pretty good. And then I started running it some more, and well, I was wrong. It does not run super good. It runs and it idles. And it idles a little bit high, and these are Strato charged, if you know anything about them. And I thought it might have a little bit of an air leak, but the more I run it, the more I feel like it's the carburetor causing the issue. I feel like it runs fine for a minute. Sometimes it seems like it's a little rich. Sometimes it seems like it's a little lean. And I went to go tilt it over because I was on the bank behind my house trying to trim up some stuff just to try it a little bit, and it started running a little funny on its side, which sometimes those carburetors, when they give trouble, they start doing that for some reason. They run funny. And I think that's what's going on with that one. It's got some carb trouble, so we're gonna throw it to the side for right now because it's the least of my concerns. I'm more interested in fixing that one and that one at the moment. The blower, like I say, I'm probably gonna use it around here for a little bit. And if I don't, if somebody needs it worse than me, well, they'll probably end up owning it. But for now, I've got a blower. And I'll show y'all something else I got yesterday that I'm working on that this is gonna be for me, so I'm more interested in it than those pieces, but just thought I'd show y'all some of the stuff that I've acquired recently. This, bet you can guess what this is. This is a gearbox to a weed eater. A Husqvarna weed eater, to be exact. Yeah, I got the plug out right now. It was in it, but I took it out because it's stuck. And, well, I acquired this weed eater yesterday, and if you look down there, you can see all the nastiness, all the rust and stuff. All that wetness is from me. I sprayed some penetrating oil down in it. See, I didn't know whether it was stuck from rust or stuck from, you know, use, lack of lubrication, because that happens a lot too. If these things don't ever get no grease, which they'll last for a long time usually with the factory grease, but if you don't grease them at least every once in a while, that grease does tend to go away, especially once the seals start leaking. All that grease gets slung out of there, and you end up with no lubrication, and eventually these things do get hot, and just like a transmission or the rear end of your truck or car or anything like that, they do get hot because it's got moving parts in it, and without lubrication they do lock down. But that's not the case with this one, I don't think. It's just stuck from rust, because I can get it to move a little bit, but I can't get it to make a full revolution. If you're wondering why I've got tape on the end of it, I don't have any really good way. I wish I had a piece of splined shaft to go down in there that was scrap, so I could grab a hold of it with some vice grips and try to turn this thing. But since I don't, I wrapped several rounds of black tape, electrical tape, on those threads to protect those threads, and I'm going to put my vice grips on that. And although that may not be the best method in the world, this thing is already kind of junk as it is, so if I mess it up, we're not out anything. But if I get it broke loose and we don't mess the threads up, we'll be in good shape. But I think with the black tape, I think we're going to be all right, because I put about 4 or 5 rounds of black tape on it. So I was trying to find my vice grips. We're going to try to put them on that, see if we can't get this thing broke loose, lubricate it up real good, put some grease in it, and see if we can't get this thing freed up. If not, I guess I'll have to source one for this thing, because I'd like to have this weed eater running real soon. Grass season's not quite over yet, but we still got a few, probably another month or two maybe of mowing. And even then, we'll probably still have some weeds from time to time that'll grow around everything. So I like to keep things trimmed and looking decent around here. But here's what we're messing with. Here's what we would like to get going. Yes, it's complete, but I tore it apart. I'm in the midst of working on it, but I just wanted to go through it and see everything we need for it before I order parts, because if I need to order parts, which I know I'm going to, I want to order everything at one time so I don't have to sit around and wait for 2 or 3 weeks on parts. When I have everything I need, I can sit down and start working on this thing and get it all ready to go all at one time. But I wanted to make sure, always, if you've got a weed eater that's been sitting for a long time, especially if it's been sitting out in the weather like this one was, unfortunately, this weed eater here was not used much at all, but it was left out in the weather. And always check those gearboxes, because you might take your time and you might say, oh yeah, it just needs a carb kit, some fuel lines and that, this and that, and you get it running and then you find out the gearbox is stuck. Then you're in a pickle. So yeah, especially if one's been sitting for a long time and it's a straight shaft, don't forget to check those gearboxes. And also, if you take that off, come down here and make sure the shaft will turn. That's important too, because if the clutch is locked up or something like that, it'll try to turn the motor and all at the same time. It's a clutch weed eater, so it's supposed to release and allow the head to freewheel from the engine. You don't want them both turning. If you do, you've got a locked up clutch. Thankfully, this one here is a little stiff, but it's turning by hand, which is good. That'll all loosen up once it's running. And I have sprayed some lube down the shaft. They've got grease in them, in these shafts, so we might shove a little more down in there once we get this thing back going again. It doesn't hurt to lubricate, because there's like a bushing inside here, and that grease is what it rides on, that and that bushing, and allows this thing to turn and not rub the inside of the shaft. But this is a weed eater that I've been wanting for quite a while. It's nothing fancy, but it's an old school Husqvarna 326 LS. You can see the tag there, 25 cc's. And what's so special about this weed eater right here to me is, well, I'm over 6 foot tall, and this thing right here has a really long shaft. You can't tell it right now, maybe you can. It looks longer with the gearbox and the guard and everything on it. But this weed eater here has a longer than typical shaft on it. And I don't even have to bend over at all or hunch over at all. I can stand completely up and use this thing. And it's super, super lightweight. It's really good power to weight ratio on these old Huskies. If you don't have one of these things, you ought to look into getting you one. I like a lot of different weed eaters. I do. These Huskies tend to lack in the torque department, but they're revvers. They rev to the moon. They're smooth, they're light, and they don't really vibrate a whole lot. They run pretty good for what they are. A Stihl, from what I found, tends to have a little more torque, so if you're cutting a lot of really tall grass or brushy stuff, you might want one of those. But for me, I like these Huskies for just trimming around places and whatnot. And this one here, being the 326, it does have a solid shaft instead of the old flex cable, so you can run a blade on this one, which is cool. I don't know that I will, but it's nice to have that option. I do prefer a solid shaft because you get a little bit less vibration that way, and it's a little more durable. But yeah, So my main priority now on this thing is I'd like to get that gearbox unstuck or find another one. I did find one on eBay for like 20 bucks. If we can't get that one broke loose, we'll probably go that route. But I figured since I already have it, I don't have no money in it, we're gonna try to get it broke loose and see what we can do. I was gonna go ahead and order all the carburetor parts. Since this is gonna be something I'm gonna keep, I was gonna go ahead and spend the money. Normally I don't do this unless I absolutely have to, but I was gonna spend the money and get a brand new primer, probably a brand new carburetor, and all new black Echo or Husqvarna fuel lines, whatever I can find the best deal on. Because I don't like the old Tygon stuff's not bad, but if I can and I can get away with it, I prefer the black 3 or 4 millimeter Echo or Husky line, because it just lasts way longer than that stuff does. So that's a little pro tip for you. If you're looking for a good quality bulk fuel line to have around, it costs a little bit more money, but it does last longer for stuff like this. But yeah, wanted to make sure we could get the gearbox and everything unstuck. Wanted to check it over really good before we go throwing money into this thing, because I don't want to spend $80 worth of parts and everything and find out that this thing was trash to start with. I think we're good to go if we can get the gearbox unstuck, but if not, we'll just get, I did find one and it was cheap, so we're good there also. I have sprayed or poured gas down the carburetor. It does have spark, it does have compression. Like I say, I don't think this thing was used a whole lot. It's a little rough around the edges, but it does seem to want to run. So we're good in that department. I do have everything for it. Here's the top cover. It's a little faded and nasty from sitting outside, but it's complete. I've got a good head for it. There's nothing wrong with it. It is tore apart right now because it had some old crappy string in it, and I had to take the gearbox off anyway, so I took it off, took it apart, took the old nasty string out. We're gonna put good stuff in it when we get it going. But yeah, so that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna see if we can find some vice grips, or if not, channel locks, and we'll see if we can try to get this thing broke loose, y'all. So stay tuned. Okay, y'all, we're back again with a little update. We did get it to turn. We did get it to turn. It is turning. It sounds like it's gargling a bucket of gravel as of right now, but it is freewheeling. The old tape and vice grip trip worked, but I tell you what, I'll tell you why I probably got it loose. The reason why I got it loose is because I got some good penetrating oil, and I took this thing off, well, I took it off this morning, but I did my due diligence yesterday, and I soaked this thing really good down with penetrating oil. I took that washer off right there, and I took the screw out right here, and I sprayed, that's the screw that locks it to the shaft, locks it in place. If you take that screw all the way out, it gives you access to here, and there's a bearing inside there. And this pretty much goes for most straight shaft weed eaters. Take that screw out right there, and I was able to spray some penetrating oil down through there, and I took that head off and the washer off, and there's a bearing behind there, and I sprayed that bearing real good. And then I took the grease plug out and I sprayed it full of penetrating oil, so it lubricated all the gears. And I let all that soak overnight, and it's been soaking most of the day. And I got to thinking, I was like, I'm gonna try this. And like I said, if I messed it up or it didn't break loose, I wasn't out any money because the thing was already messed up as it is. But the tape gave me just enough grip and allowed me to be able to turn this thing and break it loose. I'm gonna keep lubricating on it and working it some to try to get it quietened down. And when I get it to where I feel like it's good enough, I'm gonna fill it full of grease and put it back on the weed eater. And we're gonna run it once we get it all running. And you know, it may last, it may not, but we got it broke loose, and it'll give us be able to test the weed eater. If it lasts, great. If not, we'll go ahead and order one anyway and have one on the way. But you know, this just goes to show sometimes you can get this old stuff broke loose even when you think it's junk. I mean, like when you don't have no money in something and you just want to see if you can get it broke loose, it's worth a shot. Like if it's, like I said, if it's already messed up, it's messed up. You know, you're not out nothing if you mess the threads up. You're not out nothing if you mess the splines up, whatever. If you crack it, bust it, you're not out nothing. So yeah, that's just a little pro tip for me. And I either use PB Blaster. Right now, I've got, wherever it is, I've got this stuff right here that I use. I'm actually almost out of it. It's nothing fancy. But penetrating oil works wonders. It's better than lubrication because it's made to penetrate. This stuff right here, this liquid wrench, penetrating oil, this stuff works really good. It don't hurt to have a good penetrating oil around. It makes for a good lubricant, and it does exactly what it says. It penetrates into rusty bolts and things that don't move and helps to break them loose again. I'm a true believer in penetrating oil. The stuff does work. Doesn't matter what brand it is, as long as you got some good penetrating oil. Would I love to have some Kroll or something like that? Yeah, but that stuff's expensive, and you just get what you can afford. But that's what we got for now, y'all. Just a little update on what we've been messing with and what I brought home today. I will do a little video on firing up some of this stuff. Or I'll go ahead and fire some of this stuff up for you if I can get it to start back. Let's see if the blower will start back. Look at that. 2 pulls. Didn't even choke it. It's been sitting here for a little while, so it's cooled back down. And it's running. She was a little cold to start with. At least all those 4 mixes are. They're a little cold to start with. They don't like to rev right off the rip. But oh, something else I wanted to tell y'all while I got you on here. If you're messing with any of this newer stuff like these blowers, anything that's relatively new, you need to invest in a set of these. If you want to tune carburetors, be able to tune this kind of stuff, get you a set of these right here. These things, I don't use them every day, but boy, when I do, they come in handy. And this little kit, you can get these things in all different shapes and forms and everything else. I bought a set to start with, and I didn't like it to start with because this little pouch, believe it or not, right here saves your life, because the ones I bought to start with just came in a bunch of little individual bags, and it was a pain in the butt to try to keep up with them all. But they're stuff that we're technically not supposed to have. They don't want you adjusting this kind of stuff. They want you to take it to the dealer, and they don't want you messing with it too much for reasons. So this was the one for this thing. It was the Hexagon. I've remembered that because I've actually adjusted quite a few of these things. But that was what this thing needed. It needs a few other things, but that's what it needed to be able to run, because it was lean. It didn't want to idle. It didn't really want to rev up. It would just kind of run-ish, and you could kind of tell it was lean. Once I got it adjusted, I messed with the idle screw just a little bit, got it where I wanted it. Bob's your uncle. It was idling a little high when I first started. Somebody had the idle screw run way in just to make it run, and it was lean. So yeah, definitely recommend a set of those. You can get them off of Amazon or eBay, any of those websites like that. Those things are a lifesaver. Recommend the one with the pouch. And if you're wondering what this little thing right here is, this comes with it also. It's a spark tester, spark gap tester. You put that in your spark plug wire, and you just unscrew this right here, and it kind of tells you how strong your spark is, because, well, you got to ground it. You hook your ground lead up, you hook your plug into that, and your spark is supposed to jump that gap right there. And the further you move this thing out, the bigger your gap gets and the stronger your spark is. And yeah, that's what this thing's for. It comes in the kit. Well, at least my kit. Not all of them come with this. I don't really care about this thing, but if you're trying to test spark, it is kind of nice to have. You just got to be real careful with these because they will shock you. There's no safety, no protection on that, so if you get your fingers on this bolt or anywhere near that thing while you're turning something over or pulling on it, it will shock you. Just a fair warning. But yeah, we'll see if we can fire up on this old 193 real quick. Sorry I'm all shaky, y'all. Don't have my tripod, but we're just winging it. Let's see if it'll start. Well, it's trying to. It's just cold again too. Well, maybe it wants a little choke. All right, choke off. Okay, maybe it wants the throttle. Like I said, these things are a little wonky. They do run, but they're a little bit wonky. We got to go through them. Choke and throttle, maybe. Okay. Yep, there's that weird temperature where it's not all the way cold and not all the way warm, and you really don't know whether to choke it or not choke it. You know what I'm saying. That thing there, I'm not even going to try to start it because I did find out, like I said, the fuel line is broke. It would run. I'm not even going to try it anymore because that fuel line is just pretty much gone. So we'll bring you back. We might do a video on putting the fuel line in that. Let's see if this thing here will start back. We'll try to choke it. See if it'll run. All right, choke off. Okay, maybe not. That's what I'm saying. The carburetor's a little bit wonky on this thing. It was running, it was idling and everything, but it's running a little wonky. But for some stuff that I just brought home, I brought these 4 things home today. The weed eater I got yesterday. But yeah, pretty happy with that. I got pretty much 3 out of 4, if not 4 out of 4 things that run. They do need a couple little things, but that's why I get them. You know, gives me something to do, tinker with. And don't be afraid to get on Marketplace or anything and see, you know, get you something cheap. Mess with it, learn how to do it. Watch videos, ask for help. That's how you learn. Get some of these things like this off your local Marketplace, and you never know. These here, I got a guy that I buy stuff from every once in a while, and he gets stuff from the city because he works for the city and everything, and he brings this stuff home every once in a while, and he tinkers with it. He'll use it at his house, and when it gets too much in his building, he gets aggravated with it being in his way, and he messages me, and he's like, hey, you know, you want to buy all this stuff? And we work out a deal, and he usually gives me a package deal on all this stuff, and it gives me a way to get some things and make a few dollars on stuff here and there, and put some things in other people's hands for a good deal. And Bob's your uncle. The world goes around and all. I also did get these brand new chaps too from today, and I pulled them out and tried them on, and they fit perfectly. So we got us a nice set of brand new chaps, John's Red chaps. So pretty happy about that as well. But anyway, y'all, that's all I got for you right now. I know it was a lot of talking and a lot of whatever. Some of y'all like that, some of y'all don't. If you don't like it, I get it. But if you do and you watch this video to the end, I appreciate you. I'm glad you watched, and I thank you for it. And that's going to be it for this video. So stay tuned, because we're probably going to do a video on putting the fuel line in the MS290 and maybe go over it, try to get it running, and cut a little wood with it. And we might do a little video on trimming the limiters on the 192 and stuff like that, and getting it ready to go. And the 211 might be a little while. And probably gonna have a video on that 326 Husqvarna Weed Eater too, because I'm gonna order all the new stuff for it, and as soon as I get it in, we're gonna be on it. So y'all stay tuned, and we'll see you on the next one. Drew's Creations, over and out.